Good morning, race fans, and welcome back to the Hungaroring for day 2 of action for the Euroformula Open. As you can see, the cars are heading out on track for the qualifying session for today's race in somewhat different conditions to yesterday. It's cooled off a little bit, the air temperature down from the 30s to 23 degrees, and the track temperature I say just, 29 degrees, so it's warm, but nothing like as hot as it was yesterday. We had a thumping great downpour overnight here in Budapest, and as you can see, there are still a few damp patches around the circuit. Those are drying up before our eyes at the moment, but as the drivers head out into the circuit, they may well find that the track right now is in about as good condition as it's going to get, because the sun is starting to poke through the clouds. That is going to warm things up, and that, as you always know, does tend to make it a little bit difficult to find those last few tenths of lap time. Anyway, I'm Keith Collantine, talking through today's session with Elliot Wood, who's been over in the paddock, having a chat to the drivers and the team managers, finding out the stories rising from yesterday's first race, which was, of course, won by Marino Sato. But today is a new day. We will form up a new grid, and we will get this afternoon's race underway with another 25 points on offer for the race winner, plus, of course, the bonus points for pole position, which will be decided in this session, and a bonus point for fastest lap as well. We have got 15 of our cars out on the track at the moment. Make that 16 because Tepe Notori has just headed out. And Elliot, they're not wasting any time getting down to business.
No, they've, as you said, we've got a lot of clouds around here and the chance the rain could return today, so they're going to be very quick on getting laps in just in case the weather does turn.
So there is Lucas Dunner, the driver who took pole position for yesterday's race, but was beaten in that shootout sprint down to turn 1 by Marino Sato, and that proved the undoing of his Saturday. Lucas Dunner yesterday setting pole position with a time of 1 minute 35.058 seconds. That is the kind of time they're all going to be shooting for in this 25-minute session. But we are waiting to see the first proper efforts from the drivers at the moment. They'll be out there generating a bit of temperature in their tyres, or at least warming the tyres, let's use the correct terminology. But there are quite strict limits on how they're allowed to do that in this championship, Elliot.
They're not allowed to weave to warm up the tyres on circuit. This was a rule introduced after a crash many years ago, which makes it very challenging for drivers. Obviously in Hungary, it is incredibly hot this weekend. This is the coolest it has been, but it shouldn't be too difficult to get the tyres up to temperature. It'll actually be interesting if the tyres overheat, because as we saw in Friday's free practice sessions, the hotter it got, the slower the cars were.
It was very hot on Friday as well. You just had a glimpse of Nobuharu Matsushita, the Formula 2 driver for Carlin, is racing again for Carlin this weekend, but has decided to make a one-off stop over in the Euroformula Open to get a little bit of a practice at the Hungaroring. But it was practice in the strictest sense of the term yesterday. He qualified quite a long way down, and the team decided to basically sacrifice his race. We were kind of hoping that we might see him ripping his way through from the 8th row of the grid. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be, but he mainly did a few practice runs around the track. However, usefully, Elliot, that's probably going to mean he's got a little bit of a stock of fresh tyres for today's running.
Indeed, it was a strategic choice by Carlin to only run him for 10 laps of the 17 laps yesterday. He did a few laps and pitted, did a few laps and pitted again, which meant he did set fastest lap by almost 1.5 seconds. So he knows how to go quickly around this track, and he's also got the tyre life to do it again today.
So the drivers are coming round and setting their first official lap times, but we've not seen any serious lappery yet. Julian Hanses leads the provisional times, but on a 1:44.0, we've got the best part in 9 seconds, I would imagine, to find from that. Linus Lundqvist has had a little bit of a look around and popped back into the Double R garage for a spot more work on his car. He had a 5th place finish in yesterday's race, qualified quite well up. He's going pretty well at the Hungaroring so far this weekend. A few drivers beginning to explore the further limits of the track. That is Yuki Tsunoda going around turn 2, and I saw actually quite a big damp patch still in the change of directions between turns 2 and 3, which is quite a quick part of the circuit, so the driver's going to have to give that some respect. Tsunoda using quite a lot of the runoff area there at the exit of turn 5. And of course, the other factor we have to keep in mind for this race is the ever-present threat of drivers straying beyond the track limits. If the stewards and adjudicators deem that they've done that, then they will have their lap time deleted, and we had a raft of laps dropped for that reason yesterday. You're looking at yesterday's race winner, Marino Sato, heading around. Lucas Dunner and Julian Hansis are trading quickest times at the moment. Hansis is now down to a 1:38.007. That's a little bit closer to a representative lap time, but Marino Sato is on a quick one as well and is about to go, I suspect, to the top of the times. Sure enough, he accelerates out of the final corner, and yesterday's race winner posts a 1:36.822 in his motor park machine. So that's about a second off the pole position pace from yesterday.
And it equates to a lap time that was quicker than we saw in the heat of yesterday. So these colder conditions are definitely lending themselves to the cars. Sato admitted yesterday that he was struggling with his tyres, but despite that, he still qualified second and won the race. So he could be having a really tough time of it right now, but he's still going fastest.
And there are still those few little damp spots around the track, which are drying out as well. We'll probably see the drivers complete a lengthy-ish run at this point in the session, head back to the pits around mid-session for a few adjustments, and then return to the track for a final effort. Marino Sato just continuing on and plugging away. Aldo Fastante has just displaced him from the top of the times with a 1:36.745, so less than a tenth of a second in it. And as sure enough as night follows day, Rui Andrade is already having times deleted for track limits violations.
That happened several times yesterday, so he's a repeat offender. Nobuharu Matsushita as well. He's only just escaped from the pits. He's down in 15th, and because he had a lap time deleted, that was the reason he started so far down the order. He'll be wanting to avoid that today.
In fact, Andrade's lap time was deleted for not one but two track limits violations on the same lap at turns 1 and 4. Turn 4 is one of the more common places for it. It's a very, very quick left-handed corner with an inviting strip of asphalt around the outside as Marino Sato comes out of the final corner, drives towards the line and gets the lap time down to a 1:35.954. So we're now within a second of the fastest times we saw yesterday, and the times are coming thick and fast at the moment. Yuki Tsunoda moves up to second place ahead of Liam Lawson. Those are the two Red Bull-backed motor park drivers. Quite a bit of traffic there in between turns 1 and 2. So as things stand, we have the motor park trio of Marino Sato, Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson in the top 3. And then yesterday's pole sitter, Lucas Dunner. Here he is in front of us in 4th place, and he has just gone quickest of all through the first sector.
And that's not surprising because there's very few cars around Dunner. As we saw with Sato, he had traffic all around him, which compromised his run through the final corner on his fastest lap. But for someone like Dunner, who's got completely clean track, it's unsurprising he's just set another fastest sector in sector 2 of 33.3. It's around 3/10 faster than we've seen anyone go so far through that sector.
I wonder if Aldo Fastante has been taking a peek at his Teo Martin teammates' setup sheets and throttle and brake traces, because he looks in great shape this morning. He's just gone up to second place. He did have a lap time deleted, but then he improved on it to go up to third. Javier Gonzalez briefly takes over the top time, but here comes Lucas Dunner, and it's an even quicker lap from him, a 1:35.560. But yesterday's pole sitter provisionally on top of the times, although he was half a second quicker than that yesterday. The quick times coming in very rapidly at the moment.
Yeah, it's all well and good being fastest now though, but especially we've seen with the rain, as the track conditions improve, the circuit will get faster. So it'll be timing a lap right at the end of the session when the circuit will be at its best.
Yeah, one factor, of course, when you get a downpour like that is it does tend to wash away the build-up of rubber from the previous day's running, so there's not quite as much grip on the racing line as there used to be. A clutch of cars come past our commentary position, including Callan Williams, but the sole Fortec driver remains down in 7th position for the time being. He did, however, go quickest of all in the first sector on that lap, so he's got a bit of time in that car. Lucas Dunner on another quick lap.
Dunner's just had his previous lap deleted, which has dropped him down to 7th, as Nobuharu Matsushita's finally set one quick lap, and he's straight up to 4th place.
And Aldo Fastante again has posted a decent improvement, at 1:35.650. That puts him provisionally fastest. I'm sure that his teammate Lucas Dunner is capable of at least matching that time if he's able to string all his quick sectors together and stay within the confines of the track. Here comes Javier Gonzalez, currently second fastest. He goes top now, a 1:35.629, just 500ths of a second in it. But what does Lucas Dunner have on what is shaping up to be a very quick lap for him? Fastest of all in the first 2 sectors. He's in the final sector now, but he's pitted with 15 minutes left to run. So perhaps the Teo Martin driver was getting a little bit low on fuel. but past the start-finish line now comes Julian Hanses. He is in 4th position. He had a really tough day yesterday, didn't qualify particularly well, and then had that first lap collision with Nikolai Kiergaard, which he was penalised for.
All round it was not a good day for Hanses. What will be interesting to see here are the cars that have pitted is, as well as changing tyres, if they're going to make setup adjustments, because the clouds have fully lifted from the final sector of the lap now. So as we've seen with the personal best sectors, it's getting increasingly quicker, and it may require a different bit of front wing adjustment to get the most out of that.
Red Bull Junior driver Liam Lawson goes up to 2nd fastest. Marino Sato now heading the times, and Lawson just 0.04 of a second off his motorpark teammate. Lawson with 2 pole positions to his name already this year, so we know he's quick over a single lap. But it's interesting to me, Elliot, that we're seeing some different names towards the top of the timesheet so far in this section. Javier Gonzalez and Aldo Fastante, who were further down the running yesterday, seemingly finding the track a bit more to their liking today.
Definitely. Aldo Fastante as well is a driver we've seen in previous qualifying sessions who looks like he's on for a great result midway through the session, but by the time the checker flag falls, he's dropped down the order. We've got an onboard right now, I believe, with Jack Doohan. He's getting very loose through this final sector. There's corners going left, right, there's very little time to breathe here.
A bit of a feather on the throttle as he rounds the super quick turn 11, and Doohan has set personal best times in the first 2 sectors, so he's on for an improvement, but so are loads of other drivers. In fact, Marino Sato and Nobuharu Matsushita are both fastest of all, if you can believe that slight contradiction through the first sector, where they both set times of 35.825 seconds, identical to within 1,000th of a second. Let's see what they can do with the rest of their lap times. Marino Sato, who we're looking at now, has backed off and is heading into the pits. Linus Lundqvist now goes top with a 1:35.341, but we're keeping an eye out for Nobuharu Matsushita. Here he comes, quickest of all through the start of the lap, and a quick run through the second sector as well. It's looking decent for the Carlin man here. He heads to the final sector, and he might pick up a little bit of a tow as he accelerates out of the final corner from the car ahead of him. So Matsushita drives towards the line and goes fastest with a 1:35.126. That's within 1/10 of a second of the pole position time from yesterday. That's more what we expected from the Formula 2 star.
It definitely is, and he has a tyre life to set these laps as well. Lucas Dunner, I believe, is just emerging from the pits, or what, Aldo Fastante even, he's just returned. But the drivers who were pitting and have come out now have a clear track, so we could see some of the fastest times being set again now.
And we've got some big names outside the top 10 at the moment, not least Lucas Dunner, who we're looking at now, yesterday's pole sitter, down in 13th place after having some lap times deleted earlier on for track limits. And also Yuki Tsunoda, who started on the 2nd row yesterday. He is in 11th place right now, a second off the provisional pole position time set by Nobuharu Matsushita. So it wouldn't be a surprise to see improvements from Tsunoda and Dunner in the second half of the session. Rui Andrade drops a couple of wheels onto the grass at the exit of the tight little turn 6 and 7 chicane. We're going to get an action replay now. This is how Nobuharu Matsushita tackles the chicane. Smidgen of curb on the way in. Does he ride that left-hand part of the curb a little bit more aggressively? No, that's very nice and smooth indeed from the Carlin driver. That is the way to do it. If you want to set a lap of 1:35.126 seconds around the Hungaroring, as he has done, which, as we reach this mid-session lull that we were expecting, has put Matsushita ahead at the moment. Linus Lundqvist provisionally 2nd place, 0.2 of a second behind. Marino Sato, yesterday's race winner, currently in 3rd place, 0.3 of a second off the fastest time set by Nobuharu Matsushita. He is sharing row 2 as things stand with his motorpark teammate Liam Lawson, who is just a few hundredths of a second behind. And in fact, behind Marino Sato, the times are incredibly close indeed. Liam Lawson just 0.04 back. Then Jack Doohan, great showing from him, 0.06 down. Javier Gonzalez, another 200 back. And then Aldo Fastante, 500 off. So that clutch of 5 cars covered by less than 0.2 of a second. It is super close.
All the cars are in the pits now, and I've been keeping an eye on what tyres they're changing to. It looks like almost every driver is switching to a brand new set. But we've only got 10 minutes left of the session, so if they have to use these tyres again, they've got to be extra careful with how much energy they put into them.
Yep, tyre prep is going to be particularly important. And of course, as we always say at the Hungaroring, we know that overtaking is tough in the race. We did see that yesterday. These grid positions are super important. So this may not be the race itself, but do not underestimate the seriousness with which the teams approach these qualifying sessions, because possession of the front row of the grid puts you well more than 90% of the way towards contending for the victory. And as we saw yesterday, Marino Sato, although he was bumped back to second place, an excellent start by the motorpark driver put him in position to overtake Lucas Dunner and go on to take that win. But you've really got to be up on the front row of the grid if you're going to have a realistic hope of winning a race around the Hungaroring, just because passing is so difficult. But it is fascinating. I mean, in yesterday's session, consistently we saw Lucas Dunner and Marino Sato had a few tenths of a second over the opposition, and that was borne out in the race as well. The pair up at the front end really just pulled away from their pursuers as they liked. But it's a very different picture so far today, and it shows that just a seemingly subtle thing like an overnight shower of rain and a bit of a drop in the track temperature can completely change the competitive order in a race.
Yeah, Euroformula Open has a very strategic element to it in qualifying. We've seen it in previous rounds in the season. Surprisingly, there's no cars on track right now, because this would be the perfect time. You can get zero traffic if you're the only car on track. And obviously you can find where the grip is as the clouds recede.
Yeah, I'm leading forward in our commentary position to have a look at the start-finish rate, just to make absolutely sure there's nobody out there, but the timing screen doesn't lie. All 18 cars still in the pits at the moment. We do have a reminder of a few drivers who've had times deleted for track limits. That last lap by Rui Andrade was deleted, so that has dropped him down to last place. However, the engines are beginning to fire up and the cars are beginning to head out of the pits. I can see a little bit of activity down at Carlin at the moment. So we are getting ready now with just under 8 minutes left on the clock for the final shootout. And there go the last of the drivers. Jack Doohan heading out. Christian Hahn follows him. Billy Munger, we've not spoken about him much so far. He is currently down in 12th place. He heads out too. And there goes Callum Williams and Tepe Natori. Just behind Tepe Natori is a driver currently well outside the top 10, but surely still potentially a contender for pole position, and that is Lucas Dunner. He's followed out by Nikolai Kiergaard and Aldo Festante. Festante currently in 7th place, but if he were to find 0.15 seconds in that car, it would move him up 4 positions. So that just serves to illustrate how very, very close things are indeed. Javier Gonzalez, we're taking a look at the moment. He's currently in 6th position, the Mexican driver, really impressing in this session so far. We'll see how he's able to do. Jack Doohan heads out as well. It was a tough race also yesterday for Jack Doohan. He had a strange qualifying session yesterday, didn't he? Because he didn't really run in the first half of the session, then banged in a lap good enough to start well inside the top 10, but unfortunately spun down at turn 1 when the race began.
According to Double R Racing, they were keeping him cool by staying in the garage for most of qualifying. He had 2 shots set in the qualifying lap. First one got deducted for track limits. Second one put him 8th on the grid. So brilliant job under pressure there from Doohan. But it was the smallest of contacts that span him round in the race. And as we've seen with many races at Hungaroring, it was really difficult to overtake to make places back up.
Yeah, we're on board with him at the moment, and you can really see how he's treating those tyres with caution, gradually bringing them up to the optimum temperature as he comes around, ready to begin his final bid for qualifying. Just under 6 minutes now left on the clock, and what Jack Doohan got, he's got a 1:35.6 flat at the moment. That is good enough for 5th place, which is an encouraging start to the session for him. Would be one of his better qualifying positions of the season so far. There's Nobuharu Matsushita, currently our provisional pole sitter, in a bit of a stark contrast to yesterday. So let's see if he's able to find a bit more time in his car as well. So this is a genuinely exciting proposition we have set up for the final 5 minutes of this session, because there are all manner of drivers out there potentially capable, I think, of taking this pole position. And I think it's probably going to come down to not just who's able to find a clear spot of track for their flying lap, but also who's done the best with their setup tweaks in that intervening few minutes. And there is a pretty good shot of just how congested the Hungaroring can be. The two Red Bull Junior drivers for the Motorpark team, Yuki Tsunoda sweeping past Liam Lawson, and also Nikolai Kiergaard trying to find some space as well. He decides that he wants to run in front of the two Motorpark drivers. This is starting to look a bit like a Formula One style qualifying session where they all converge on the track at the moment, trying to get slipstreams from each other.
It is very difficult to get a slipstream beyond the main straight here at Hungaroring because there are a lot of corners. We don't know the fuel levels of each of the cars, but Lucas Dunner has set the least laps of anyone, and he was the earliest to pit. They put on the new tyres straight away, but then he was just sat there in the garage for a long time. So it's going to be very interesting to see if he can get heat into those tyres, and possibly if he's got more fuel in his car than everyone else.
First few cars start to come past our commentary position, and Yuki Tsunoda is winding himself up for a run. Surprisingly enough, Tsunoda, winner over at the Hockenheimring, who's currently well up in the point standings, yet to take a pole position so far this year. And as things stand, he's well down in 11th position. So really, the order of business for him is going to be get a solid banker in, make sure you're not starting outside the top 10 at the Hungaroring of all places, and then work up something better. And the same applies to Lucas Dunner, who we were just talking about, out with a fresh set of tyres on his Teo Martin car. And what is he up to in the first sector? Has he now begun a push lap? We'll find out shortly. He rounds turn 2 in the Teo Martin car, makes full use of the track at the exit, dodges the extent of the damp patch on the inside of turn 3, and then begins to climb up towards turn 4. This is an unsighted and very, very quick left-hander, and the drivers have to make sure they don't take too much of that runoff area at the exit of the track. And Dunner, although this is a very smooth and unobtrusive looking run for him so far, has done his personal best time through the first sector, keeping in mind that he did have some times deleted earlier on. So this has the feel to me of a banker lap, Elliot.
Yeah, and he has clear track in front of him, which is going to help. There's only just under 3 minutes left, so we're unlikely to see any of the cars pitting. Although people may cool down there because of how little time there is, I imagine everyone's going to be going for a flying nap next time round.
And in fact, he's now gone fastest of all through the middle sector. Oh, but has he backed off then at the exit of turn 12? Yes, he has, and that was looking like a decent little run to me, so I'm not sure why he's done that. And
that was going slower than just slowing down as you do a cool-down lap. That was looking very slow. We'll see if he actually comes through the final few corners, as Callum Williams behind him set his best sectors. Rory Andrade's jumped up to 15th. He had many of his previous laps taken for track limits, and he's now set 1 minute 36.5. 1.26 seconds left. Dunner has crossed the line. He has completed the lap.
Right, so not necessarily a problem with the car. Not entirely sure what happened there. It may have just been a slightly fluff gear change or something like that. But that was looking like a strong run. But nonetheless, we'll see exactly what's happening. So who else is improving at the moment? Marino Sato, who we're looking at the moment, has just gone fastest of all through the first sector. He is 0.3 of a second off pole position based on his current time. So let's see if he's able to improve further, but we've got a lot of activity on the timing screen now. Jack Doohan has done his personal best time through the first sector. Julian Hanses and Christian Hahn's also improving. So are Billy Munger and Callum Williams and Lucas Dunner off on another quick lap as Marino Sato negotiates his way past Nobuharu Matsushita.
And we've got a reason why Dunner backed off there, because he abused track limits at some point in the first two sectors. So the lap wouldn't have counted anyway.
It's a sensible thing to do then, to back off and save the tyres, but no backing off from Marino Sato, who's still quick through this final part of the lap time, and Nobuharu Matsushita, his fellow Japanese driver, is following him as Rui Andrade makes a big improvement up to 8th position. But Marino Sato, yesterday's race winner, is in the final corner and out of it. What time has he got as he drops down to 4th place as Julian Hanses improves, but then jumps to the top of the times with a 1:34.920. That is the fastest time we've seen so far this weekend, but it's immediately beaten by Christian Hahn, who's come out of nowhere with a 1:34.791 to take provisional pole position. So I said we could see anybody on pole position, and sure enough, a big surprise there. Here comes Lucas Dunner out of the final corner, and he goes 3rd with a 1:34.992, 0.2 of a second off Christian Hahn, who was suddenly dug deep and found an extraordinarily good lap time. Nobuharu Matsushita is 4th. However, he is under investigation for the manner in which he's been warming up the tyres. We'll get to that in a moment because we've got another flurry of drivers improving their lap times. Here comes Liam Lawson out the final corner. He's slipped down to 10th, but goes up to the top with a 1:34.663 for the motorpark driver, backed by the Red Bull Junior team. So he now leads the charge for pole position. The checkered flag is out, so it is now down for the final drivers to post their lap time improvements. But the bad news for Liam Lawson is his teammate Marino Sato is doing just that. He's quickest of all through the first part of the lap at the Hungaroring. He is heading into the final sector now. He was quick as well through the middle part of the lap as well, so he is currently on course to beat Liam Lawson's lap time by around about 1/10 of a second, providing he keeps it neat and tidy through the final part of the lap. He heads into this interminably long right-hander that ends the lap at the Hungaroring, but he's out of it quicker than I can say that, and he heads towards the start-finish line. Here comes Marino Sato, and it is pole position with a 1:34.488, but it's lost to Nobuharu Matsushita immediately with a 1:34.361. Following along just behind him and lapping 1/10 of a second quickly. However, we have to keep in mind that Matsushita is under investigation for the manner in which he was warming up his tyres. Nonetheless, for the time being, it's Matsushita on pole position. Is anybody else going to be able to improve? Yuki Tsunoda was on a quick time, but he has slipped down to 16th place, I think, because he's had a track limits violation. So a disaster for the motorpark driver who finds himself plummeting to the back row of the grid. Liam Lawson has got one final effort. He's personal best in the first 2 sectors of the lap. He crosses the line, he moves up to 2nd place, so he demotes Marino Sato, knocks yesterday's race winner off the front row of the grid, and Lawson missing out on pole position by just 12 thousandths of a second. That was as close as you like. So it's Nobuharu Matsushita provisionally on pole position.
And we've got race control already acting on some decisions. I think Billy Munger had one of his laps taken away. Yuki Tsunoda is set to have his fastest lap taken away.
Tsunoda has
his second
just
fastest lap.
So Tsunoda's gone back up to 4th position, so he really has rescued that one because he was on course to be in the back row of the grid. Linus Lundqvist got a little bit loose on his way to 8th place overall. That's a big save for Tsunoda.
That is a definite save there. Billy Munger's now starting last because he lost his quickest lap, and seeing another onboard Jack Doohan, another who got loose and almost spanned the car around then. Great car control as he brought it back onto the track.
Doohan ending the session in 12th position. So it's Nobuharu Matsushita on pole position as things stand for this afternoon's race. But of course, we'll have to see what the stewards have to say about that. The Carlin driver, the super sub from Formula 2, preventing Motorpark from occupying the top 3 places, just as Lucas Dunner did yesterday. So it's Liam Lawson ahead of Marino Sato and Yuki Tsunoda behind him. Dunner only able to make 5th place this time for Teo Martin, yesterday's pole sitter. Christian Hahn, who briefly topped the times, slips down to 6th place ahead of Javier Gonzalez and Linus Lundqvist, who we saw taking the rallycross route at the exit of the chicane. Julian Hanses, 9th ahead of Callum Williams. Tepe Notori is 11th for Carlin. Jack Doohan, who we saw having a few slightly scruffy laps, is in 12th place. Rui Andrade, having had a few laps deleted, is 13th, ahead of Aldo Festante, who, as you said, Elliot, tends to run strongly at the beginning of qualifying sessions, and he did, but couldn't find the improvements right at the very end. Nikolai Kiergaard will start 15th alongside Pierre-Louis Chauvet, and in the back row of the grid, Cameron Dass and Billy Munger. Munger, again, having a few lap times deleted. And so we'll be starting from the back of the grid. Well, Nobuharu Matsushita, it would be alive. We said we didn't think he had the pace to take pole position because we were kind of expecting to see this type of show from the Formula 2 driver. Didn't really participate in yesterday's race as such. He qualified quite a long way down, peeled off into the pits at the end of the formation lap, and then kind of used it as a bit of a test run. But if those were his tactics, they paid off very well for him today.
It was a great job by Matsushita and the Carlin team there, although obviously Billy will be starting at the back, his teammate. Interesting thing here is the top 2 on the grid might not be here for the next round. Obviously, Matsushita's guesting this weekend, and Liam Lawson has a clashing commitment, unfortunately.
We're going to hear from our provisional pole sitter in a moment down the pits. There he is, taking his line through the chicane. Keeping it very neat and tidy. It's Nobuharu Matsushita set to lead the field at the Hungaroring. Let's hear what he has to say down in the pits.
Nobuharu, pole position for race 2 here at Hungaroring after a very nice battle.
Yeah, I was aiming for this quite a lot, the beginning of this weekend. Yeah, unfortunately, my lap yesterday delayed by organizer. It's really close, but yeah, anyway. Thanks for the team. It was an amazing car, so yeah.
And you hope, of course, in a nice race this afternoon?
Yeah, it will be my first race with this car in this track, so yeah, hopefully I will have fun, yeah.
And how are you enjoying Hungaroring?
Yeah, actually I won many times here, not many times, like a few times in F2. So I like this track, and then it's completely different car, but yeah, still I like it.
Well done. All the best for later. Bye.
You've got to love the classic racing driver mentality there. Never mind the fact that he's just parked the car on pole position. He's still grousing about the fact that he had his lap time deleted yesterday, which might have put him up at the sharp end. That is exactly the kind of competitive mentality that we love in our racing drivers. So Nobuharu Matsushita quickest, but by just 12 thousandths of a second. We'll see what the stewards have to say about the tyre warming up. But for Liam Lawson, I don't know what it's like to miss out on a pole position by 12 thousandths of a second, but I imagine it doesn't feel too great.
It's not the best feeling, but Liam's a great overtaker. So as we saw in the first race, it was turn 1 where the move was made for the win.
Of course, it was Marino Sato from second on the grid who won yesterday, so perhaps it could be Liam Lawson again today. Join us later on to find out. We'll be live at 12:45 European time on the stream and on TV, so catch us there. Until now, from me, Keith Collantine, and from Elliot Wood, thank you for joining us. See you again soon.